Welcome to Thriving Thoughts, a podcast for women who believe in thriving in any and every circumstance. Every week, we have candid conversations with remarkable women about how they silence the little lies in their minds and overcome their shoulds, coulds, and not enoughs with big truths. I'm your host, Dr. Sherry. Now let's thrive. Hey, sisters. Welcome to episode 11 of Thriving Thoughts with Dr. Sherry. I am your host, Dr. Sherry, and I'm so excited to have you back for another show, Redeeming Our Connections. Listen, y'all, I'm about to introduce you to an incredible, remarkable, everyday woman. Her name is Jess Hatcher. And I got to tell you guys, God keeps bringing such incredible women into my life through this podcast that I would not otherwise have met, nor would you have had the opportunity to listen to. And Jess is no exception to that standard. Listen, Jess is a residence life director of an undergraduate university in Indiana, Huntington University, as a matter of fact. And Jess shares with us how to redeem several different connections in our lives. She spends some time talking with us about moms and their daughters or their sons who are in college and how we can redeem the connections that may be lost because of distance, that may be lost because of time or situation, how to do that when our kids come home for a visit, right? She talks about redeeming the connection of our identity. Listen, you guys, she touches on social media and how this problem, this concept that our identity is founded, our worth is founded in our level of social media engagement, it crosses and bridges the generations. So she talks about that a little bit. She also talks about redeeming the connection with forgiveness, with restoration, with whatever problem you're facing. Jess gets real, y'all, at the end of this episode about a problem that she's faced and that she's dealt with and how she opened up and how when that happened, when she started to share her story of redemption, she was able to bridge and build deep, meaningful connections with other sisters who raised their hand and said, me too. In fact, y'all, Jess has a little sticker on her water bottle that says, you are never alone. So listen, tune in, listen up, get in touch with my friend Jess. You will be inspired too. Oh, and by the way, did I mention she's only 27 years old, y'all, but so much wisdom and such clarity. You all are in for quite a treat. So enjoy episode 11, Redeeming Our Connections. Hey, Jess, good afternoon. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I am happy to be here.
I am glad that you're happy to be here because I'm happy to have you. And I just got to meet you like not even, a week ago?
Not even, yeah.
Well, not technically meet. We met over the phone.
Over the phone, now face to face.
Yeah, which is fantastic. So, so this is so funny. I was just... Listeners, I was just telling Jess, she has a water bottle and I'm like, hey, let's take a sip of water before we hit record. And I said, hey, you might want to just like unscrew that water bottle so that when you go to take your next sip, that the unscrewing of the water bottle doesn't make noise in the audio, which is kind of pretentious of me, I guess, but funny. Anyway, tell us about your water bottle. It looks pretty cool.
Well, I was just getting ready to say that my water bottle is kind of like my transitional object, which means like I take it with me everywhere as a comforting device. Like, yeah, I feel like it's part of me. And if it's not this water bottle, it's a different water bottle. And so I get to stay hydrated, which is healthy, but it's also like this weird comfort thing. Like I just don't leave my house without it.
That's awesome. Are those stickers that you placed on it or that came on it?
I bought them. So this one says pizza rolls, not gender rolls, which I'm very passionate about.
Yeah. What does that mean? What does that mean to you?
And I also think gender roles can really trap us. Like,
yeah,
I actually think about this mostly not as a woman, but more from like a men's perspective. Like, I feel really sad that men don't have permission to feel their feelings in our culture. And so I'm like, listen, you don't need to fit into your gender role. So anyways, that's that.
Right. I love that. Pizza rolls, not gender rolls.
Not gender roles. And then this sticker is actually, it says, sister, you're not alone. And this is actually from a chapel that I spoke at. And everyone got stickers afterwards. So just as a reminder that they aren't alone. And then, the rest of these are just stickers from other things I've done. And so it's kind of collected a bunch of memories, and I'm sure I'll keep adding on to it.
That's fantastic. Is that South America? Is there a South America sticker on there?
There is a Africa sticker on there.
Oh, an Africa sticker.
Yes, because I went to South Africa in January.
Oh, what'd you go there for?
I went with students on a trip.
Okay.
So I work at a university.
Okay. Yeah. Tell us about you. You work at Huntington University, right?
Yes, I do.
And so tell us what that's like and why you're like, why?
Why? It's a question I ask myself sometimes. So I'm a resident director here, which means I live in a residence hall with students. This is my 6th year doing this job.
Oh my goodness.
Which most people stay in this job for only like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
But I feel really passionate about walking alongside students in their lives. And I had a lot of people come into my life in college as supports for me. And it was something I desperately needed.
Yeah.
So once I had that experience, all I wanted to do was give that to other people. So I joked in college that I was majoring in residence life, which isn't real. But
now, did you have an RD who influenced you?
Yes, I had a few RDs who influenced me, as well as just other staff members on campus, like people who just worked in other departments. They were just very safe for me. Yeah. And when I was in college, I really needed safe adults. Mm-hmm. And so to have that experience was just mind blowing for me. And I felt like God led me into doing this. And so when I graduated from college, I was actually looking for grad schools and res life jobs at the same time.
Wow.
And
like a place to go to grad school and a place to be a res life director at the same time.
Yes. And so Huntington University provided that for me because I went to their grad counseling program.
Okay.
Which is a great program. Shout out to that.
Yeah.
And then there's also a res life job open.
Okay.
So I got to do both.
Wow. Now, were you able to kind of do like a barter thing? Like, I'll do this for you and you pay my tuition.
Well, I wish, but no.
Right.
Private universities work a little different than public universities.
Yeah.
But the gift of it truly was that I had such a flexible schedule because I make my own schedule. Mm-hmm. So although I'm required to work a certain amount of hours of the week, I live here. So it is 24/7 being around and
being available
and all of those things. So I get to schedule my own stuff, which then really helped in grad school when it meant going to classes or having internships, getting homework done. Like there was just so much freedom. So I was very grateful for it. Plus I don't pay for housing or meals here. So there are some added things that's huge that help. So it's live-in ministry, honestly. And it is a really rewarding and beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. I'm just sometimes a little extra tired. So.
Now, well, sure. I imagine that you are. And that's why you look so comfy right now. It looks like you've got like a blanket on you or something. I don't know.
I do actually have my alma mater, my blanket from Anderson University where I went to undergrad.
Okay. And where's Anderson?
It's an hour south of Huntington. It's like outside of Indianapolis.
Okay.
Another great place. That place shaped and formed me. So it's wonderful. But I'm comfy because today I have such a strange, I don't know how to put this. I guess just job in general. So I'm also a therapist on campus since I have my master's in counseling. Okay. So I counsel students for, I don't know, like 10 to 15 hours a week.
Okay.
And Thursdays are my counseling days. But also today we happen to have this like huge party because we're moving forward with an initiative that we have on campus. Okay. And so it was like caricatures and funnel cakes and a piñata. And so I had a client at 9 a.m., talking about mental health stuff. And then by 11 a.m., I'm guarding a piñata for 2 hours outside and eating a funnel cake. Yeah. To only go back to having clients. And so...
And now you're doing a podcast.
And now I'm doing a podcast. Like my day is just random and thrown up in the air.
And that fits with your personality, it sounds like.
It does. I like spontaneity and I like to be in control. And so even though
Wait. How does that go together? You like to be in control, but yet you're pulled in all these different directions.
It's a twisted thing, Sherry. So twisted. It's like I have to respond because I'm not in control of things, but because my job allows me so much freedom,
Yeah.
I can control a few things of like when I work, when I'm available, like is my door open? When do I schedule meetings? Can I move meetings? You know, some of that stuff that's a little different than like a 9-to-5 office cubicle job.
Got it.
So, yeah.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
You mentioned that you are also a therapist on campus for the students.
Yep.
Okay. And you're a Res Life director. So where did those two roles intersect or do they?
Well, so ethically, I can't have dual relationships or, you know, it's always strongly encouraged you don't have dual relationships. So I will see clients that don't live in my building.
Got it.
I don't have any other authority over in any way. So I can just strictly be their therapist and nothing else.
Okay.
So that's how those intersect. And it started to intersect when I graduated from the program. Essentially, we did some rearranging around in our student life department, and I got offered a job that was counseling and res life. And that was exactly what I needed at the time. So,
wonderful.
Yeah. So it was a really great combination, and I enjoy doing it right now because I don't think this is something I'll be able to do in 10 years. Like, this is a perfect job for me being in my 20s, and I'm single and I don't have kids. So I do have extra freedom that I think some other people don't have, which gives me the opportunity to be available in college students' lives.
Well, and I would say I kind of argue with that a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that you have more freedom. I think it's that you have different priorities.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, different priorities.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I think very often single people kind of get thrown under the bus, like they've just got all types of time on their hands.
Yeah, that's true.
But the truth is, everybody has the same amount of time. We all just have different priorities.
That's a great way to reframe that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for you, this is your priority right now.
Yeah.
And it's been your priority for the last 6 years. Tell us what was on your heart when you said that you felt like God called you to this.
Yeah.
Can you give us some insight into that?
Oh, well, it kind of depends on how far back you want me to go, which I can go. I'll just go ahead and go back there.
You go where you need to go.
Okay, let me know if it starts to get confusing. My timeline sometimes. I jump back and forth a little bit.
Okay.
So I go into college my freshman year, and I am like many 18-year-olds. I'm really wanting to get out of my hometown. I'm wanting to leave. I'm wanting to start over.
Right.
Fresh new thing. The first month or two of school felt like summer camp. Like I was just making new friends and living with a roommate and eating whatever I wanted and staying up late, you know, all the fun things you get to do in college. And I was in a safe environment doing it as well. So I felt like that gave me more freedom to enjoy myself. But then about October-ish, November, which after being in many seasons of residence life, that's when people start to, get a little overwhelmed. And that's when issues start to rise up that maybe they've been able to put off since coming to school. So that happened for me. Late October, November, I got some news that just really crushed me and kind of brought up all my trauma again. And I was like, okay, I can't avoid this and ignore it, even though I am somewhere new, which is when I started going to counseling as a freshman in college. And then
was that accepted on your campus? Was that encouraged? Was it accepted? Was it something that was talked about?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I went to my RA and told her what was going on, and she's the one that said, maybe you should go to counseling. And I was like, okay. I mean, I knew I needed it, and I was free. Right. And so her encouragement for me to go was what ultimately led me there. And then I went and I had the same therapist for all 4 years.
Oh, so you continued for the entire term of your undergrad years.
Oh, I've had like at least 6 years of therapy under my belt.
Nice.
7.
I love you, Jess. I love 27. You even more.
So I have
You're my people.
A lot of therapy for myself.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Now, it's interesting because I actually did my pre-doctoral internship. It was a year-long internship at Louisiana State University. Actually, I'm drinking out of that cup right now, and it's so worn off. You can't even see it. Yeah. So I worked in the student health center. Yeah. And did, lots of therapy with students there. And I was so enamored by that population. Just the, and I say this in a good way, the intensity.
Yes.
The intensity of like what is going on in my life and why that's so important.
Mm-hmm.
And I compare and contrast that, like, in my later years as a therapist to working with adults, how it just like disappears. That intensity just like goes away.
Mm-hmm.
So there is something to that intensity that is really appealing as a therapist to be part of. Like I always felt invigorated by my sessions with students. How do you feel with yours?
Yeah, I feel the same. A lot of students walk in and they are either dealing with something from the past that they are not, kind of like me in college. Like I wasn't really wanting that to come up again, but there it is.
Yeah.
Or they're just trying to learn about themselves. Like there's so much identity formation that happens in your early 20s. And so it's honestly just that all the time. And so to work with people figuring out themselves, becoming aware of things, like it is invigorating and it's encouraging, it's exciting. And I love if I could set people up to enter into the rest of their adulthood, having some more self-awareness, because that will help them out as they keep growing up even more.
Yeah. So you were on the receiving end and now you're on the giving end of that. And so I really just appreciate that so much because you're able to see both sides. Here's something I want to ask you because it's something. So the women listening, they either have a daughter or a son in college right now, or they're going to, or they did, or, and so I wonder if we could just touch on something that I recall, was a real challenge for parents. So you've got kids who are, for the most part, when they go to college, when they go to undergrad, they're legal adults. They're 18.
Yep.
And I cannot recount how many parents used to call the student health center to find out what was going on with their child and how that transition, like you're talking about the transition for the child, for the young adult, I say child, for the young adult, that transition is difficult as that identity formation and they're trying to figure that out. That's equally difficult for the mom or dad who are like, pump the brakes. Like, what is happening here? I need to know what's going on in their everyday life. So can you share a little bit about that? What kind of experiences have you had?
Yeah, I've had many different experiences with parents. I think there have been some who fully understand what I do and are like, thank you for being in my child's life. Appreciate your insight. Thank you. Others who, like on move-in day, I have so much grace for parents. It's a very stressful day for me as I'm moving in like 100 people.
Right.
But parents will look at me and they're like, so are you still in school? And I'm like, no, I want you to, like, I'm trying so hard to look like the responsible adult. I'm like, no, I am 27. I have my master's degree. Like, I am separate from this.
I'm like full-blown adult,
life.
y'all.
I try to remind them of that, even if I may not look like it.
Right.
But I also have a lot of grace for them because sometimes they come to me frustrated or with questions, and I feel compassion for them because I know they're dropping off their baby. At a place that they may not know much about, or there's just so many emotions in that. So I get it. And
then mom is like weeping on the way home.
Yes, crying, and that all makes sense to me. So I don't have any nightmare stories with parents. Most don't contact me. I think that's just because of the generation we're in right now. They have a lot of access to their kids, whether that's through social media or
technology.
Gen Z is also just naturally more close to their parents and homebodies. So that kind of changes the difference.
So that's interesting. Tell us about that. So you're saying Gen Z is closer to their parents?
Yeah, I read a book.
I read a book.
Of
course you did.
Why am I forgetting the name of it? It's called iGen.
Okay.
And it's talking about Generation Z. And we read it as a staff last year to help better understand our student population currently.
Yeah.
Because it definitely changed. And we were just learning about some of the statistics, and just one of the data points, I believe, please fact check me on this.
Sure.
but is that like students, like high schoolers right now are going on less dates and they're going out less often. They're staying at home more. They just are closer with their families than even a millennial. Like I was literally out of my house almost every evening.
Right.
And that was for a lot of reasons, but mostly for social reasons. Like I just wanted to hang out, or people were at my house. Like it was always wanting to go and do things. And Gen Z is
not so much.
Not so much. Yeah. Now that doesn't speak for everybody, obviously, but just from some of the statistics in that book, that's what it spoke to.
So for those of us listening who are like total tools when it comes to talking about the different generations, right? And the only term that we might be familiar with is baby boomers.
Yeah.
So who's in college right now, and what do you find? Let's talk for the young adult women. Which generation's in college right now, and what do you see as their primary challenges? Just remembering, Jess, that the concept of this podcast is how women approach the little lies that are informed to them or that they tell themselves, and how they learn whether those are lies or whether they're truth, and how to speak truth over them. So maybe you could give us a little bit of insight into who are you seeing right now, and are there any common little lies that these young women are believing?
Oh yeah, for sure. Gen Z's in college right now. So this is generation after millennials.
Okay. And Gen Z, when were they born?
Oh, I'm trying to remember. I think
98, 90.
Yeah, 99, 2000, around there, somewhere around there. And, I don't think it's anything super surprising that other people didn't face in college, but what I'm seeing a lot of right now is just relationship issues, relational issues with men, relational issues with friends. I think they believe a lot of lies that they have to earn affection and earn approval, especially with social media. I think social media has done so much damage. I mean, it can be great, but when people's value is placed on how many people like their photos.
Oh, girl. Yes.
And so many of the students right now are in that phase where they're posting pictures on Instagram and wanting attention, because who doesn't want attention? Like, of course we all do that to some extent.
We all do it. Yeah.
And it's considerably different for students now. Also, their communication barriers are different as well, because they're used to using technology. And so I think some of their insecurities in relationships are because of that, because they aren't talking to people face to face as much as I was as a teenager, because I just didn't have all of the same resources they have.
So their insecurities in relationships are increasing because of a heightened use of technology and a lowered use of face-to-face?
That's what I think. I mean,
okay, tell us why you would say that.
I just think that because I think connection and intimacy in relationships is incredibly important. And that's what can help us grow and help us heal from so much of what we experience in life. And that's why as children, that's, the basis of attachment is relationship and intimacy and closeness. And so
physical proximity.
Yeah. And I think our phones, our computers, they just separate us. And we think we're connecting because we are in some way, but it's not a real connection. It can be some type of buffer in between sitting down with someone face to face and really talking about things.
How do you teach an entire generation of children that grew up with this thing from the time they were 2? They were learning how to operate phones in a way that their parents couldn't. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Kids are teaching their parents how to do stuff, little kids. So how do you, that seems like a massive paradigm to shift. Like, how do you even approach that? How do you approach that with the young women that you work with?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of research coming out right now about smartphones, and especially for me on the therapy side of things, social media and your phones, they don't help one bit with anxiety and depression. They actually make it worse. So when you're feeling anxious or depressed, the last thing you need to do is
pick up your daggone phone.
But this is also transitional object, speaking of them, for almost everybody who has one. You don't leave house without your phone. You have it
Can
near
you tell our listeners, tell us what that means, transitional object?
It means like something that you take with you that's of comfort. So like as a child, you had a blanket, and that was probably a transitional object that went with you and your mom to the grocery store. And
I had a bogey.
Yeah, exactly. Like you just take different things with you.
Right.
And they're basically like these are like adult pacifiers in some sense. And they calm you down when you're in public and you don't want to interact and you just want to be on your phone.
Girl.
Like truly, like that's what it is. And I'm guilty of this.
Pacifier.
An adult pacifier.
What's like the major brand? I'm just going to start calling these Nooks or something,
exactly.
Right?
So
yeah.
I don't know how we change that for a generation, except I believe that in years to come, we will just start to see the damages and people will realize, oh my, we should have had boundaries on this. We should have not let, the time, XYZ.
Yeah.
Like this really didn't help me at all or whatever. So when I work with students now, I just try to encourage boundaries and
do you guys foster, let me ask you this at Huntington.
Yeah.
Do you guys foster or facilitate an atmosphere of physical proximity connection?
Yeah, that's kind of the whole intent of my job of what I try to do.
Got it.
So we're always planning things. Like we have floor worship every week for all the floors in my building. I host events. Like tonight I was supposed to have an event called Flapjack Friday, which is where we make pancakes for everybody in the building really late into the night. Into Friday.
Because I was like, it's Thursday, girl.
I know. And people ask, like, why? It's Thursday. I'm like, I know. That's the point, though. Goes into Friday.
Right.
And so those moments are supposed to help foster connection and get people out of their rooms and get off Netflix, all of those things. And so, yeah, today, the giant fair we were doing or whatever with the caricatures and all of that was also to foster connection and going and doing something fun and not just looking at people doing something fun.
Yeah.
So we try our best. I try my best. When I have my staff meetings with my students that work for me, there's a no phone rule. So you can't have your phone unless I'm asking you to use it or you need to check your calendar. So yeah, I try my best to foster opportunities for that.
Well, so it's interesting too, because I don't even think, I used to think that I think the only generation, this is based on sheer observation and personal anecdote.
Yeah.
I believe that the only generation that has been able to effectively exercise boundaries with the increase of technology and smartphones is baby boomers.
Interesting.
Because, so I'm a Gen Xer. Do you know how many times I myself, I'm going to admit it, have a panic attack when I pull out of the driveway and I'm 10 miles away and I realize, where's my phone? Where's my transitional object? Where's my pacifier?
Yeah.
Like really?
It's true.
Like we live off of them. We connect socially with them. We work on them, right? Baby boomers, not so much. They don't work on their phones. They, like my mom and dad, they use it for like, I don't know, playing words with friends at night. You know what I mean? Like it's not important to them. This is so funny. Just as a quick aside to demonstrate this point, my mom will text me and she'll say, hey, call me. Right.
Yeah.
And so then I call her like 20 seconds later and she doesn't answer the phone.
Yes.
And I'm like, seriously, mom? But that's the case in point, right? That they are able to literally walk away. If you and I were to say to somebody, hey, call me, we would make sure that one, we had our phone with us, and two, that it was on ringer and off silent.
Yeah.
So I just think it's fascinating that I think that even though Gen Z has now been really kind of the first generation to grow up like all of their lives, this level of technology, I think it's bled backwards. Like when you were talking about how these young women, one of the lies they believe is that their worth or their value is determined by the number of likes or hearts or, double taps on IG, whatever. That has bled backwards into women in their 40s.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
I mean, this is not exclusive to younger people. I mean, but you're getting them when they're young.
Yes.
So and these girls, they have moms who are like my age, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So how do you guys, I mean, is there a conversation to be had? I mean, obviously there's a conversation to be had with parents, and I think that's been ignited. I think it's been started about technology and some of the detrimental effects of it in regard to social connection and things like that. But are we only having parents preach to kids and not preaching to parents?
I mean, yeah, I think obviously in parenting, the biggest, I'm not a parent, so please take this lightly, but from at least what I've seen.
That's okay. You don't have to be a parent to have an opinion.
I know, but some people really believe that is true. So,
well, listen, let me tell you something real quick. Somebody said to me, because I used to have people in counseling or therapy sessions that would say, and I worked with kids for a number of years.
Yeah.
And I was awesome at it. Like, here's why I'm awesome, because I'm removed from the project, right?
Yeah.
that's why I can be awesome. But I had a physician friend tell me, if somebody asks you, do you have kids? And they're using that as some sort of barometer for your effectiveness or your level of competency.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a physician. I don't have to have diabetes to know how to treat it.
True.
All right. So
good point.
So you can lead the way with your opinion.
Yeah. Well, it's just, I think a big tool in parenting is mirroring. So if you as a parent are on your phone all the time, because it's sending off, dopamine to your brain when you have people who comment on your post or like your picture. So you're sitting on your phone all night, then your kids, of course, are going to be on technology. Or even when like maybe you're my age and you have kids and you have little ones, they want your phone because they see what takes your attention. And I honestly, a few years ago, as I was working through some of my own stuff, I have a lot of attachment stuff from childhood that I am constantly working on. I just kept feeling this sadness of what it must be like for little kids when they see their parents sitting on their phone all the time and not paying attention to them. Yeah. Like, I think I would have felt like, why is that more important than me? Hence why they go for it every time it's in your hand.
That's right.
They see how important it is.
Yeah.
And if you never had that in your hand, they probably wouldn't think much of it. And so I just think about that as like, I feel like it could really get in the way of,
like, it's this prized, valuable possession that deserves all of my time and energy and focus. Ooh, that's a great way to put that. Ooh, that kind of hurts a little bit.
It does. And it does hurt. And I think that now, like with Gen Z, parents are like, I want to have a Facebook and Instagram because my kids want them. And then I've sat with families where all we do is just everyone's just sitting there on their phone. And I'm like, well, I kind of wanted to have connection, but here we are. Not like I haven't done that. My goodness. I sit on my phone a lot, but I've just witnessed it in moments. And I'm like, I just feel kind of this sadness with it of this is just interrupting us having a face-to-face.
Well,
moment.
And it's not only interrupting, it's actively doing so. So there's addictive properties to it, correct?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah. Like, I mean, you get a dopamine rush when you log back into Instagram and you see, 1,000 people liked my photo.
Exactly. I actually don't have Instagram or Twitter on my phone right now, just to help me have boundaries. Because if I have the apps on my phone, I will open them, and I know that about myself. So I just take seasons of time where I just completely take them off my phone. Yeah. And have some space. It doesn't mean I don't think about it, but I'm just like, you know what? It's just healthier for me in this season of life to not see it every day.
Yeah. So, hey, I want to switch gears just a little bit because I know we've spent some time talking about social media, and I think that's important. But before we switch gears, what would you, I want you to speak to two women right now. I want you to speak to a young woman who you work with, and I want you to speak to her mom.
Oh boy. Okay. What an audience.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Since just as we're wrapping up this discussion about social media, what would you tell both of them about it? In terms of the truth of social media?
Yeah. That's a hard question. Let me think about it. Also, being a therapist, I'm very comfortable with silence. So
Yeah.
I realize that might not be helpful on a podcast, but in general, I'll sit in silence for a long time to think about something.
Right. I'm totally comfortable with it.
Oh,
I'm not sure. Maybe we should take this opportunity to teach our listeners to be comfortable
with silence. Okay, everybody?
Right. No, we won't do that to you.
That's funny. I mean, I think this is kind of something I've already said, but I would say don't let it be a barrier to your relationship. And
between the mom and the daughter?
Between the mom and the daughter. Like, don't let this be something that's secretive, first of all, because I know kids hide things on there. I hid things from my parents.
Sure.
Even when I had like a flip phone in high school. But like, don't let this become a barrier, and don't let this get in the way of your relationship. Like, especially with children who are at college and parents who are not with them anymore. I would hope that when a kid comes home, they both aren't just sitting on the couch on their phone. I would hope that they're going to coffee and talking and they're connecting, and they're not just using that as the only bridge to know each other's lives, but they're still making intentional phone calls. They're still, asking questions and some of that kind of stuff that I think is
being
really
intentional.
easy to pop out of. Yeah. You don't have to be as intentional in their social media.
Right. That's true.
I guess that would be probably my best advice.
I love it. Thank you. All right. So now I want you to tell us, I know you've mentioned a couple of times some trauma and some attachment. I want you to tell us why counseling for you.
Counseling.
For
me as a profession, or why I've had it for many years.
But for you, well, those two are probably intricately woven together.
Indeed.
So you answer that the way you want to answer it.
I believe strongly that God is a God of redemption. And I think I've seen that in my story many times over. And now I'm at that point where I just kind of wait for it. I'm like, okay, God, I think you're going to redeem this. So let's just see when that happens. And I, of course, have a different timeline and want it to happen immediately.
Yes.
But that's not how it works.
Right.
So when I was in middle school, I was in an abusive relationship with my middle school guidance counselor. And it was actually an older woman. And so that lasted for a very long time. But because of her, like when I was in 8th grade, I really loved her job. I thought, oh, you're not a teacher. This is cool. Like, you don't have to do the boring stuff, but you still get to hang out with us. Like,
right.
It's the perfect job. And I liked being at school. And I thought, oh, this is awesome. So for a lot of years, I wanted to be a school counselor. Because I just thought like that'd be a really cool influence. And then when I got to college, it wasn't until my senior year of college when I realized going to grad school for counseling usually sets you in a trajectory. So if I wanted to be a school counselor, I would have had to get my master's in school counseling rather than general counseling. So I decided to go the general counseling route just to be a licensed mental health counselor rather than just for school counselor purposes. Because I just knew I probably didn't want to be stuck in a school forever. So instead I got to be here at a university, which in some sense is still school counseling in a way, which is kind of fun. But now I am a therapist, and I'm a healthy therapist, and I have worked through a lot of my stuff so that I can have space for other people's things. And I have supports in my life that help me process my own stuff so that therapy isn't about my relationship with my client or finding my approval and my worth in my relationship with my clients. Some of those things that I think can be really unhealthy if you're not a healthy therapist in some sense.
Oh, you talk like you're 60 years old.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I truly
you're wise beyond your years.
I've been told I have the gift of wisdom. And so I try to
I see that.
Lightly, but So I feel like me being a therapist now is the way of God saying, like, let's redeem everything that happened to you, and let's redeem all of the pain and hurt that's in other people's lives. And I can't do it without the Lord. My gosh, the Holy Spirit is my acting help in those sessions. I cannot, it is not me doing things. So even today, like I've kind of had an off day, like my body aches and I felt sad, and as much as I don't want to admit this, I think my period's coming, and that just plays a part. It just really does.
It does. And why do we not want to admit that?
I think
why is there an issue with that?
No, pizza rolls, not gender roles.
Right. Pizza rolls, not gender. But because I remember, like, it's always been a point of contention. Like, people with boys, when you're younger would tease you. Oh, you're getting ready you must be on your period or whatever. And it's like, except they would say it more crassly. Right. Why is it? It's like still taboo. We still don't want to say, yeah, I'm on my period and it makes my hormones go crazy and I'm feeling a little off today and that's okay.
I think it's just because we felt shame as women in our culture for being emotional beings and letting that, we just aren't okay with it or for some reason. And so for me, I don't like not being okay, back to control stuff, but I moved some of my appointments around today, like back to the flexibility. Like I had the boundary of, I'm not going to be a good therapist today. Like I don't have the space and I want to be able to really help someone. And so because I can fit them in again and not, see you in a month, like I'll see them next week. I just said, hey, can we move this around? And so instead I have come home and I have tried to ground myself and I reached out to my friends and now here I am sitting under a blanket, being hydrated, talking to you. Trying to do this healthy.
What's really just super fantastic about what you said. So, because here's a mistake that I think a lot of us women make is because of that sense of shame or that undercurrent of you're never not supposed to be okay. Yeah. Like that's not okay for you to not be okay. Right. And so then what we do is we might admit to ourselves, like in your situation, I am not going to be a good therapist today. Yeah. And still follow through with it and not set those boundaries of saying, you know what, I'm not going to be a good mom to do homework with my kids today. Yeah. So you know what, I'm going to get somebody else to do it with them. Or I'm not going to be a good friend to talk to about your problem right now today. So let's talk maybe tomorrow.
Boundaries.
Yeah. Gosh. But not even boundaries. It is. Yeah. But it's advocating for what you need. I mean, my last podcast episode, I just talked with a woman about using your voice. Christy, sorry, her name escaped me, Christy Ratcliffe. Her episode, she talked about how as women, we have to use our voice. We have to be willing to say what we want and speak up for what we want. And when we're not willing to do that, man, everything around us, including us, falls apart.
And a lot of this for me too, personally, has to do with me learning over the last few years how to parent myself, because I think I've had to do a lot of inner child work. And so in doing the inner child work,
what does that mean?
It means going back to the hurt and wounded, stuck parts of your childhood or of the littlest parts of you that you can remember, and going back and trying to do some healing there. Yeah. Because obviously we can't go back in time and change things, but we can try to heal the parts of us that we got stuck in. Trauma, like trauma is being stuck. And so when you're stuck in these younger parts of you, it just impacts the rest of your life. It impacts your relationships. It impacts how you respond to things. And so when we all have inner childs that we just haven't dealt with, they don't shut up. Like if you locked a kid in a basement, they're not going to be quiet about it. They're going to scream and knock on the door. And so every time you push away that part of you, she's going to get louder. And so for me, I've had to learn what it looks like to reparent myself and parent my younger parts when I feel this sense of exhaustion or pain or sadness. Like, what are the boundaries that are needed? Because no one's going to do it for me. I am a grown adult. Yeah. And so I don't get to have that type of parenting now. And that's okay. Right. Like, developmentally, this is where I'm at. So now it's my responsibility to do that for myself. So it's been a really hard journey with a lot of mess ups and fails and mistakes. But ultimately, I have learned now how to be the best person for myself. Yeah. And to, give myself boundaries. Yeah. And to myself, and give myself boundaries, and also push myself a little bit and say, you can make it through your last client today. It's not like I just give myself permission to leave everything, but I know now when to push and when to say, maybe we need to take a step back.
When to stay and when to go.
Yep.
Yeah. That's good stuff. Yeah. So I heard, so we actually met through Layla Solms, who was also on my podcast. Yeah. And she mentioned that you were a speaker. So you're not just a therapist, but you're a speaker. What do you speak about?
I don't speak at like a lot of places. I've spoken in chapel multiple times, hence the sticker
so you're a speaker
on my transitional object.
Right.
I actually spoke.
You are not alone.
Yes, I spoke with women, which I have no secrets anymore, which I feel very amazing about. But I felt called to speak with college women about sexual addiction and masturbation. And so I spoke to all the women who came to chapel that day about my story and my struggle with that through childhood and into adulthood. And
oh my goodness.
Know it. And then I gave them a sticker to remind them they weren't alone, because it's a taboo topic that needs to be talked about, and women don't talk about it, and men have porn groups, I feel like, every other corner, and hold each other accountable, and women act like it's not even a thing. And I'm like, oh my God.
There's that, there's that lie, like we are not supposed to go there.
Exactly.
Girl, can you speak a few minutes to that? Because maybe there's a woman listening who needs to hear something that you have to say about that.
Listening about that.
Yeah.
I just think that it is such a taboo topic in our society, especially in Christian purity culture, to not talk about those things. But the shame that comes with sexual addiction is so damaging to yourself and to your spirit and to the people around you. And it doesn't get better when you're in relationships. That doesn't change, doesn't go away. Right. There's always a reason for why it's going on. And so if anything, all I would say is that someone would talk about it and tell someone who's trusted in their life and not keep it a secret. Because I kept it a secret for so many years, or I told very unsafe people in my life.
How do you, that's a great point, because man, you're just like in my brain right now. Cause I was just going to ask you, how do we know who's safe?
It's people that you can build trust with, and people who don't judge you, in moments, and who can have empathy and practice empathy. Brene Brown writes a lot of good stuff on that. So if you ever feel like you need to understand what that looks like, just Google Brene Brown and you'll find some TED Talks and some of her stuff on her website. But
now, have you ever done any blogging about sexual addiction?
I have not. I used to have a blog in college, which feels like such a classic college thing. Like, let me share my feelings on this blog. Or in high school and middle school, I had a Zanga. Back in the day when Zanga was a thing.
Wow.
Yes. But no, I haven't really blogged about it at all. I probably should.
How can the women listening hear more of your story about that? Or is there a platform for them to hear more about that?
I mean, I guess they could just contact me, and if they wanted to hear more about it, I could work up writing a little ditty about it to give them more information, because I think it is just incredibly important to talk about. And it's so funny to see people's faces, especially college students, when I'll tell them about this. Yeah. And they are like, what? Did you say that word? And I'm like, yeah, because we can't avoid it. Like, it's real. You struggle with it. Like, I'm not going to act like people don't struggle.
Oh my goodness. And here, so this is not about sexual addiction as much as it is about abuse.
Oh yeah.
But, Bethany Syverson, I did an episode with her, and she told a story about a 3-year-old girl, because, man, and this is like righteous anger. Like, we have got to stop being afraid as women to call stuff what it is, to label it what it is, to use the real words, to speak like without shame about our sexual selves. Yeah. Because this little 3-year-old girl came home and said, oh yeah, grandpa likes to eat my cookies. Mm-hmm. They had no idea
what that meant.
Yes. And they had taught her that the word for that was cookies.
Yep.
Right. But they thought she was really talking about cookies.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's gosh, like, how do we, so here's how we do that. Right. We start talking about it on podcasts like this.
Exactly.
And we start saying it's okay to talk about it.
Yep.
It's not okay. It's not just okay. It's required. Like, we need it for our own safety, our own security, our own healing.
Yep.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
And I didn't even talk about it in therapy until I was in grad school. So until like 3 or 4 years ago, when I was seeing a different therapist than I was in college. So I still had so much shame about it in college. I only told one friend about it my whole 4 years there. Wow. And then it wasn't until I got to counseling again this time where it came up and I talked about it. And then that helped me have so much more compassion for myself, because I realized it was just a self-soothing skill that I was trying to do to comfort myself. And that's when it kept coming up, was self-soothing, self-soothing, self-soothing. So how could I figure out a different way to self-soothe? And, learning that there's grace for me in all this, and I'm not alone, and that the Lord can provide some of that soothing that I need, and I don't have to get to that point.
Right.
Nor did I ever feel like good afterwards. I felt terrible. I felt like crap. And so that shame feeling is just terrible. And I'm just so sad that I was alone in that for the majority of my life, for 21 years of my life, 22 years or something.
Can you tell us what was that point where the tension was so taut that you had to
talk about it?
Yeah.
Boy, I wish I could remember exactly. I will say I do remember a moment when I was a resident director here where I think the conviction hit me of like, I don't want to be acting like this and leading people. I feel like the Lord has given me authority over younger people right now. And this is not something that's fruitful for me. Wow. And so that was the beginning of my conviction and my beginning of not practicing that anymore.
So it was the Holy Spirit.
It was the Holy Spirit, of course. Yeah. And then that led me to also being in therapy with someone who I trusted and loved, who I could talk to about it. I honestly can't remember why it came up, but I think I was just ready to say it and be like, I stopped doing this, or this is happening, or this has happened. And as I was able to just like piece things together, it just all made sense. And I was like, oh, okay. And then a friend of mine and I ended up, it was so funny. We were like paddle boating and we ended up telling each other that we both had struggled with it. And we just had this amazing Me Too moment where we're like, oh my gosh. And so we just instantly got closer and could hold each other accountable and talk about it honestly in a real way. And I think that's what helped take away so much of my shame was having people who got it and understood.
Me too. Yeah, you're not alone.
Me too. And then that just kept happening and kept happening. So I kept bringing it up to the point where I told like hundreds of college women and I just thought, I guess they're going to know this about me, but I have no shame in it anymore. Like free people. Well, so I want to set people free.
That's right. That's right. And it's just not about you.
No.
Like if we can get off our high horse of, which really, shame is a high horse because we make it all about us.
Yeah. That's true.
And I'm not shaming shame. I understand
how
powerful that is.
Yeah.
But I think if we could learn to get around that and be like, what if my shame could help somebody else?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
And I think I don't think we're meant to go through struggles just to keep them to ourselves. No. Like I think we're meant to talk about them, to help other people. And the moments that happened after that chapel were just some of the most beautiful moments I've ever experienced. Like a student just sitting on my kitchen floor with me sobbing, saying like, I've never told anyone that, like that's the type of stuff that I felt like the Holy Spirit was clearly trying to make happen, that set them free too. It's just over and over again. I just saw fruits of it. And I'm like, then I'm going to keep talking about this.
Yes. I love that. That's a fantastic story. Thank you for sharing that with us. And for paving the way with your own vulnerability. So
I try to do.
As we wrap up here today, I do a couple of things. One, I want you to think of one truth that you would want to speak to the women listening today. And what you want them to remember. You don't want them to forget this one truth. And then after that, I want you to tell them, how can they connect with you? How can they reach out to you?
Oh boy, just one truth. That's so hard.
I know. You're only allowed one.
I know, there's so many.
We've already shared quite a few, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the one that I feel like I want to speak from my life is that vulnerability is brave and is not the weak thing to do. It's the brave thing to do. And that the more vulnerable you are, again, with safe people, your life will just get better and you will have such deep relationships. And to not hide. Hiding does nothing. And so please don't hide. Please show yourself to someone. Exactly. Exactly. And so I think that's a truth that I want women to know, and that they're worthy of deep connection and love, no matter what they've done or what's happened to them. Like that's still available to you. Yeah. And it should be available to you. And nothing makes you not worthy of that.
And not lovable.
Yeah, not lovable. And that's just such a huge lie that always pops up.
Yes.
So it just needs to be, I'm just reminding you now that is not the case.
You are lovable. You are worthy. Yeah.
Yep. Even in the face of rejection and your own shame, people loving you and leaving you, like that doesn't mean that you're not worth.
That's right.
All of the love that you need.
That's right. Yes.
Yep.
All right. So how can they reach out to you?
Currently I would say Facebook Messenger is probably ideal. My name's Jess Hatcher on there.
Or can we include that link in the show notes?
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Or my email address.
Okay.
Which is jhatcher@huntington.edu.
Okay, we'll definitely include that as well.
Yeah, just because, like I said, I don't have Twitter or Instagram on my phone right now. Feel free to follow me. I'm taking some steps, back, and so I'm not on it very often. So I'd probably miss a message. Okay, if I got it, but yeah, that's probably the best way to reach me.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm. Well, it has been, man, so profound. I am just like. I just love that I have this woman who's like almost 20 years younger than me on the show, like schooling me on stuff. Like, I love it. Like, thank you so much for all of your wisdom and for sharing that gift of wisdom with me and the listeners.
You are very welcome. I feel honored to do this. When it got brought to my attention, I'm like, well, I guess I don't have a reason to not do it. So I'll say yes. Why not?
So let's say yes, like Jim Carrey and Yes Man.
Exactly.
All right, Jess. Well, thanks again. And we'll be sure to include the links and your email address in the show notes so people can reach out to you. Thank you again. And you go and you have a wonderful afternoon.
You are very welcome. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
As always, I'm humbled you chose to join me this week for Thriving Thoughts. It's women like you who listen, subscribe, and give us thoughtful reviews that allow our message of thriving in any and every circumstance to reach even more women who need a healthy dose of truth speaking. I'm Dr. Sherry, and I'm grateful to be your Thriving Thoughts host, where we're shifting perspectives and speaking life to you so you can thrive. Be sure to tune in next week and share this episode with a friend. Until then, remember, overcome your little lies with big truths.